Okay, YouTube peeps, we're going to do a little Wicked Rhombus update today. Brian has to work. I'm out in the garage with the swamp cooler and the race car and the R8. It's always nice to work on one while you can look at the R8. It seems to give you inspiration. Anyway, you're stuck with me today if you want to watch this. If not, who cares? As you know, we've owned the TTRS now for right at a year. It's been a really fun year. It is, I want to say right up front, every bit as good a car as we thought it would be, especially me. We have had some teething pains, some brought on by us, some brought on by the group of individuals that we've enlisted to help work on it, which that list gets shorter and shorter and shorter every single day. But I'd like to give you a little bit of a year recap now of all that's gone on. When we first got it, we left it with the full interior in it, put a harness bar in it and a harness and a race seat, and we time trialed it for the last half of the year, from the September started Indy through the last event at AMP, Arizona Motorsports Park. As it turned out, the car was better in street trim than we thought it would be. Brian actually set the fastest time of the day with the car, the last event at AMP, on some really old tires. And our goal was, after that event, to send it to the shop and have the cage built. So that was December 12th. It came home. Up to that point, it was the only problem we had was the turbo. Over the summer, we realized was bad. After some discussions with 034, the supplier of the Loba turbo kit, they said it couldn't be the turbo, it had to be the tune. GIAC had put a custom tune on the car. When it ran, it was fast. The problem was, when you asked for boost, it would have an underboost issue and go to limp mode. So we decided to take it to Audi, put an N75 valve in it. That didn't fix it. We then took it to AZ Euros, and they put in a stock turbo. We decided to go with a used stock turbo with 2,500 miles until we decided and learned how dependable the engine was going to be, how tough it was. The turbo, in fact, the Loba turbo, when we got it off, was bad. It was not the pop-off valve. It was, in fact, the turbo unit itself, the bearings in the turbo. I can turn them and show you. This here has a whole lot of play. When that's happening, air is making it from one side of the turbo, the exhaust side, and it's leaking. So lo and behold, 034 was wrong. Love those guys. So it went to AZ Euros. They put in the stock turbo, did a great job, except that they left off the Go Fast Bits diverter valve that we had bought and installed. And they installed the N75 that came with the stock turbo, which in fact was wore out, had been sitting on the shelf and rotted. So after a few months, we had another low boost issue we've since had to address and fix. Back to the teething pains. Chronologically, we finally got the cage put in it at Flat Out Motor Works. They did an awesome job, an absolutely awesome job. It's the cage I wanted to have built for the car. Simple, meets all the rules. Doesn't have the NASCAR doors because frankly, those NASCAR door doors make door bars. Yeah, I'm old and illiterate. Make it hard for me to get in and out of the car. So we got that installed. We got it all. It all looks pretty decent. It's amazing how it scratches and wears and looks bad after 3 months. We finally got a good used Ultra Shield race seat, which basically fits me perfectly. It's mounted in the car perfectly. We did our first race weekend and had some teething pains after we picked it up. This little box here, which we were told by the head Audi technician at Audi North Scottsdale, had nothing to do with the ABS or the traction control or the yaw sensors. In fact, if you take out all the airbags of a car, this little box right here still talks to the traction control and the yaw sensors. And Brian had to learn the hard way that without anti-lock brakes, if you go to the brakes too hard, you put a flat spot on 4 brand new tires. So we only got to race one day that weekend in January at the East Track. All the bad stuff seems to happen to Brian. It's never fair. He works hard. For some reason, I break the car on Saturday and he doesn't get to race on Sunday. So that was our first race weekend. One day, we learned that, in fact, when we brought the car home, plugged in the airbag brain, all the dash lights went off. The airbags went light, still on because there's no airbags, but the traction control works. The car doesn't go into limp mode looking for the yaw sensors to talk to it. The anti-lock brakes work, and it in fact was a riot and a lot of fun to race then. So our next race day was at the Bondurant track with the looper. It was kind of fun. It's been repaved. Basically, it's rough as hell. They cheaped out when they repaved it. They didn't fix the potholes and the ruts underneath it. Made it, the faster you went, the more it just beat the hell out of your old body, or my old body. I have to turn off the computer here. I'm streaming to Garage TV. So we learned that weekend, before we went to the shop to get the cage, we took the air conditioner off of it. Save weight. I really wanted to increase the cooling. I know nothing about a 5-cylinder turbo engine. Absolutely nothing. That's not an exaggeration. I always worry living in Phoenix that things get hot. So I took the compressor off. I was told that you can, in fact, remove the lines, the condenser and everything, and the compressor will run fine because, and it needs to be on the car because it works as a pulley to run the alternator and the water pump. In fact, the coolant, the refrigerant, actually runs through the compressor, and without any coolant running through it, it basically cooked itself. And on race weekend number 2, the compressor ate itself, overheated, blew out the bottom of the pan, literally blew a hole in the case, the guts came out, and so we finally got a new bottom pan that has to be installed, which will go on this week. That was technician number 2 screw up. Technician number 3 screw up was, after that weekend, we also found we had a short in the dash somewhere that would blow the fuse for the brakes, the traction control, and it's all the same fuse. So while it was there waiting for the AC delete kit to come, which I wish I could take pictures of, it's a really trick pulley. It's handmade by a guy in Canada. I don't remember his name, but if you look up AC delete for TTRS, I'm sure it'll come up. It's an awesome little piece. So it came home without the CTS turbo cold air intake installed because supposedly that box was rubbing on all these wires down here and causing the short. Well, every now and then, Dan's foolish and believes the technician, and he's got it ready to load onto the trailer. Brian comes home. We're getting ready to load up to go to the track on a Friday. This will be the third race weekend at Maine. Chuckwalla. We're going to Chuckwalla, which is basically 4 hours and a half from home. It's a great track out in the middle of nowhere in the desert center, California. If you haven't been there, it's big, wide open, sweepy curves, a couple little simple tricks. Very, very safe and enjoyable and fast. Wears out your tires and brakes, and after 2 days you're tired because you've gone fast and had a good time. But back to the story. Brian's telling me in the driveway, you need to start it and take it for a drive and make sure it works. I said, Ben worked on it. It'll be fine. So I start it, head out the driveway. Before I get to the end of the driveway, fuse is blown, all the dash lights are on. So we bring it back, basically, take the fuse box off, reposition the fuse box. We find that when I move the wiring from the fuse box to the dash, it blows the fuse. So we located the fuse box as far away from the dash as we could get it, straightened out all the wires, and have kind of jerry-rigged a fix. We didn't actually find the short. There's so many wires back there that, frankly, I'll be real honest, I'm afraid to look through it. But no more fuse blown, traction control works, everything's been great in that area since. So as I said, we get through Maine, 2 hard days of racing, one for me and one for Brian, through Chuckwalla. 2 days, I raced both days. Car was very good. Second in class at Chuckwalla. It was a good race. We were a little distressed because when we had the car tuned at AZ Euros, we were under the impression that it had a stock tune for pump gas and a race tune. We thought it was a little flat on power with the pump gas, so we've been putting race gas in it. And Brian tried to load the race tune and thought, in fact, that he had loaded the race tune on it, which frankly gave me enough horsepower I should be able to outrun the spec Corvettes that raced with us at Chuckwalla, and I couldn't. They could outrun me in the straights. And Brian and I talked about that. Didn't seem right, but we didn't worry about it too much because of the tires and learning how to drive the car. And in fact, I got better as the weekend went on, and my fastest 2 laps were the last 2 that I ran chasing a spec Corvette on Sunday. So we thought maybe it was just me learning how to drive it, teething issues, and no big deal. So we take it to Maine track, 4th race weekend. Up to now, after Chuckwalla and the 2 days at Maine, the car has been solid as a rock. I have bounced it over the curbs. I have destroyed the cooling fans I've put on for the brakes because I hung them down low, which at the time was the only place they could go. I've literally ground them off to where the housing is into the fan blade and they won't turn anymore and they burned up. I have driven it like a wild man with no brains. And it has yet to not hold up. It's just been awesome. Doesn't overheat, runs 200 to 210 degrees. Oil temp stays around 240 and we're very happy. So we have 2 good days at the main track here at Wild Horse Pass. We decided we're going to go do an event at Indy Motorsports Ranch with the Audi Club here in Arizona. They had a track day for the members, and we went down and we took both the TTs. We took I drove the TTRS the first couple sessions in lead follow, and in the fast session when we were allowed to go out and run at full speed, I ran it through the gears, got it up against the rev limiter in second gear, trying to outrun a twin turbo V10 R8, and the ugly boost issue showed up again. I actually felt it pop. I felt it lose boost. So we dealt with it as best we could. We brought it home. We had 2 weeks to get it ready for the Memorial Weekend, which is the last race we have here in Arizona before the summer break. We found that the intercooler hose on the hot side the clamp was off the end of it. It had been installed that way, or it had been loosened up and moved that way when the AC delete was done. We really don't know which. But it was off the end of the clamp and didn't look like it had been sealing properly. You could see where there was a air gap there. So I fixed that, drove it around, declared it good, drove it around on the street. We loaded it up, took it to Indy, and once again, low boost, limp mode. For those of you who don't race, it is not fun to have to shut your car off and start it 3 to 5 times a lap to try and race it, because when it goes to limp mode, you can't go nowhere. So we muddled through the weekend. Car was good. The car itself, the chassis, the brakes, the motor when it runs is phenomenal. It is absolutely, it's fast. It does exactly what we want. We just have these little issues. So since we brought it home, I'm going to perform a smoke test on it tomorrow, hopefully, or Monday if the smoke test unit I bought gets here. But we found a N75 that split in the N75 hose that was the hose that actually goes from the turbo to the pop-off valve actuator, and that hose is under pressure most of the time, and it had a big split in it down to the clamp. When I cut that hose off and replaced it with a different clamp, tightened it up good, I went out and tried to kill it one night for 30 minutes and could not make it go to underboost. Goes to 20 pounds, stays there, doesn't bleed off, and it's a rocket. It's been really fun. It was really fun anyway. So we've got a lot of work left to do to get ready for a test session in June. We have some early morning track days called Track Addicts with Pro Auto Sports. We're going to take it out that morning and see if we can run it and make sure the boost issue's fixed. I think preliminarily that it might be, but it will be a track setting, and we'll find out. It's at the East Track. Until then, I have a long day ahead of me today. I'm going to reinstall some brake fans. I'm going to reinstall the belly pans because frankly I don't want the engine hanging down there and it bouncing around, and it can't be good for aerodynamics. I bought these Marine exhaust fans this time. They were a more heavy duty unit than the last ones. 120 cubic feet of air per minute is what they're supposed to move. Instead of mounting them in the bumper cover, I'm going to mount them up top here at the front, behind the grill, right up here in this gap. I'm going to run the hose down to the front of the grill, and then I've got another hose I'm going to run across through the front down here into that little fender well on each side. There's a big enough gap that I can run a hose. I'm going to dump the hose right down there into the top of the rotor. We're going to see how that works. Here's our little 5-cylinder engine. This is one tough bitch now. If I haven't managed to kill it the way I've driven it, it's tough. And we'll have our test day and get ready to go to hopefully Indy in the fall and have a 100% car. I do appreciate all the help that we've gotten. Chris Wynn and Matt Kolka helped me with the boost issue and not overheating, but a water leak issue at Indy last time, and they took care of that for me while I just basically sat there and watched. Normally I'd do the work on the car. Brian and I do, and sometimes it's nice to have good friends to do that stuff for you when you're not in the mood. But that's kind of our yearly update. We're currently leading the PSO points in the group that we race with, which is kind of a really nice surprise. Hopefully I'll learn to drive the car and can actually earn that distinction by the end of the year. Brian is quicker than me sometimes. But that's our little update. We absolutely rock it. I don't work on it any more than I do the Corvette. It's a joy. Doesn't have the understeer issues everybody said it was going to. The balance on it is amazing. The tire wear on it is, we've got 20 cycles on these tires, and we rotate them front to back and side to side, and they look like they're just as even can get. We run Toyo RRs for right now. PSO class, you have to run a DOT tire not bigger than 275 millimeters wide, so right there we're kind of hampered. We have a little bit more horsepower than tire at this point. I do intend to see if I can get the Loba Turbo rebuilt. There's all sorts of bolts, bearings, seals, and stuff attached to that. You can't tell me that a turbo can't be rebuilt. They say just buy another one, but the car was good and fast with it. The tune that GISE had originally supplied was amazing. They have saved that file, and if we have any trouble with the stock turbo, I would like to go back to the Loba Turbo. That's kind of the update today. It's Saturday. There's all sorts of racing today. NASCAR, Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, IndyCar racing at Belle Isle, IMSA, Sports Car Challenge after IndyCar at Belle Isle, and Tony Stewart's SRX Racing Series champions this evening. So I'm going to tape and watch racing all day. I'm going to hang out in my swamp-cooled garage and have a good day. I hope the rest of you guys have a good day too. If you watched to the end, thank you. If not, I'm sorry I'm boring, and I just like to share our little car here because we have a great life and a great car, and you just like to share that with everybody. Have a great day, people.